All right, everyone, welcome. This is video number 4 of the 4 financial roles. And you know how we do, we save the best for last. Shh, don't tell the other ones that said that though. We save the best for last. So we talked about the bookkeeper, the tax planner, the tax preparer, and now we are talking about the creme de la creme of the 4 financial roles, the CPA, the certified public accountant. And so I have with me today, if you know good people, they know good people. And if you remember our tax planner slash retirement strategist, Nick Smith, he referred this young lady to us today because Nick Smith works with her. They work in the same building. So I have none other than Miss Tamika Benton of the MB Legacy Consulting Firm. Welcome, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So first things first, just like with the rest of our interviews, this is going to be a completely organic conversation because we want to inform our CEOs, one, about the different financial roles. Secondly, how each financial role, they're going to be impacted by one of the 4, if not all of the 4, in some part of their business journey, right? And Right. And so that's why this conversation is just so important. So first things first, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Well, like you said, my name is Tamika Benton. I am a certified public accountant as well as a certified tax coach. I got started in accounting a few years ago. Decided to get my accounting degree, but decided to take it a step further and get my CPA license as well. Just a little backstory about myself. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So, regardless of how many degrees I get, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So, after working in corporate for a while, worked at different firms for a while, I decided to take my knowledge and my education and go back to the entrepreneur space, small business space, to help fellow entrepreneurs like myself to navigate the tax complexities of owning a small business.
Absolutely. And I hope that you guys heard Ms. Tamika talking about that not only is she, a CPA, but she's an entrepreneur at heart. And so we're going to talk a little bit about both of those sides because we are both entrepreneurs. We started our businesses for a reason, right? God called us for a particular little thing like, hey, don't you know they need so and so and so and so? Right? And
Yeah.
you know, right, and that's pretty much how everybody's business pretty much starts. You see a need, you meet it, and then it just goes forth from there, right? So I love that you started off the story, in that way. So we talked about, your heart and why you chose that role because you said you were starting in one particular industry, and then you said, you know what, I want to shift, I want to pivot, and then you just kind of moved into, that finance space. I love that you talked about that. So in your space now as a CPA, can you talk to the CEOs? How does your role help entrepreneurs?
Good question. So for me, after about 6 years now of working with my client base is pretty much 90% entrepreneurs. So after working in that space for now about 6 years, the number one problem is lack of information or misinformation, right? So for me, I tend to try to think about the services on the back end, but for my clients, the most important piece is that advisory piece. So for me, it's bringing my knowledge, bringing my expertise to the market, and then using that to educate the client first and foremost. So that's adding value. So I seek to help my clients by adding value and not necessarily focusing on the services itself, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
That makes perfect sense. Because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about the 4 financial roles. And then especially, one of the things that I talked about when I did the prior videos is that the questions that you ask are critical. They are critical because, one, not every function functions the same way. Like you said about the misinformation, I would say about 85% of my consultations, they assume that I do taxes, and I make it explicitly clear. Your girl does not do taxes. Now, am I abreast of what's going on in those IRS streets? Absolutely, because that helps me organize your numbers. So, in a lack of better term, perfect world, if you're a CEO, you should have at least somebody organizing with the data entry part of it, right? And then you'll have a tax preparer. And then with that tax preparation, there should be an element, like you said, of strategy and advisory. Because, and especially when it comes across, and we're going to talk a little bit too about the shift between the LLC to the S Corp, because right now that is the most popping conversation in the entrepreneur street. I was like, y'all, just hold tight. You're like, we gotta get an S Corp. We gotta get an S Corp. It's either that or bonus depreciation. Folks are just jumping off of trees talking about those two things. Like, y'all, just shh.
I agree.
So yeah, so that advisory piece is critical. It is absolutely critical because that separates the news, or I say the seasonal people, right? For the people that are partners and they're going to be with you for the long term.
Absolutely.
So that's
So that's where you get into more like the relationships versus, or the relational transactions versus the transactional side of the business, if you will. So just like you said, for me, that the long-term clients, where you're looking to help them build and scale their businesses.
Right. So let's talk about the intake process, right? So if you have a prospective client, boy, I tell you, we talk about this part all day as well. So if you have a prospective client, and one of the things that I talk about, especially when it comes to the financial journey, is the importance of niching, because every CPA don't assume that a CPA works with just any general industry. That's why you have to ask specific questions, right? With bookkeeping, with tax planning, like I suggest to people, I would say you need to know what specific tax forms. The more specific you are in asking those questions, that'll let you know who you dealing with. If you ask a tax preparer, do you know how to prepare an 1120? You can look on their face and tell if they know what it is or not. They'll give you all the information you need right there.
I agree.
Right. Yeah. So when we're talking about the intake process, I'm trying to reel it back in. I told you I can go there. So what questions should a prospective client ask when they're trying to find a CPA?
Right. I have quite a few, but I'll say just to know that it's always a two-way approach, right? I'm interviewing the prospect should also be interviewing me. But some key questions should be, how responsive are you? Like, how quickly do you respond to emails or communications or questions? If you are not the point of contact, then who would be my point of contact? What are your best practices in working with your clients? What does the ideal client and their working relationship look like? So I would say always ask questions that would allow that CPA or business professional to explain exactly how it works. Instead of a yes or no, like, explain to me as a prospect, how does it work in your practice? If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And I just want to go ahead.
I'm sorry. And so what you're really, as a prospect, you're really trying to determine if that CPA is a good fit for you.
Absolutely. And I just want to rest on that two-way approach, because can we just have a real conversation for a second? Because as bookkeepers, tax preparers, tax planners, CPAs, if you want us to deliver to your expectation, we can't just pull numbers out the sky. You have to give us the information in a timely fashion. Because right now, this is like Q4 has been the period of evangelism. I've been offering what I call the deacon hand. You're going to have to do the deacon hand at the end of this interview. I'm just letting you know, you have to do the deacon hand. So Q4, I took my team and we said, you know what? Let's sit down. We're not going to take any new clients. Let's reflect and figure out. We went through a whole client analysis. What did we love about these clients? What opportunities, what behaviors are we noticing, and what do we feel like with these behaviors? Are we clearly communicating our expectations about these behaviors so we can change them, right? So even in it, this hour, we are really hard on content and specific educational content as far as what we're doing. So in that, we have to just make sure that when we are getting ready for what we call intake, because tax season is approaching, we have to be clear in our engagement and say, hey, if you want this if you want this stuff filed by X date, we need this information by this date. Otherwise, be prepared to file an extension. Like you said, that two-way thing is real. We can't be our best professional selves unless there's the partnership. That partnership is real.
Yeah, and I do agree wholeheartedly, because what happens, no matter what I promise you on the front end, I can't deliver on that if you're not responsive. Same with with the other way. Whatever that client is looking for, if if the client is not responsive, then regardless, the professional can't deliver.
That's right.
So the two-way communication and just being responsive is very, very important in order to receive the value that you intended to get on the front end. So whatever you retain that CPA for, in order for that CPA to deliver, there needs to be some level of responsiveness along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about, we talked about the questions that for prospective clients. So say we fast forward, you've had the consultation, and now it's time to start onboarding the client. Can you kind of walk us through what those steps look like for your firm?
Sure. I'll back up just a little bit. So from the lead or from the referral, they would schedule what's called a discovery session. And with that session, I'm just trying to determine what issues the prospect is currently having, and still at the same time determining if it would be a good fit, ideally, for both parties. So after that, the prospect would move into what's called the engagement and enrollment phase, which is where we'll schedule probably an hour meeting to go over what that picture looks like for the engagement, based on what how that discovery session went. And then after that, they would move into the onboarding phase. So at the onboarding step, they would meet with my business support manager. She would schedule them for what's considered an orientation. And basically that orientation would involve going over our best practices, what we expect from the client, how we operate, our deadlines, how we communicate, who your point of contact is, and pretty much the expectation for both parties, us as well as the client, so that there is understanding on the front end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A team is so important. Oh my goodness, a team is so important. Because again, we can't do what we do best. And that's something that I'm personally learning. I just recently invested in an accounting firm, coach, and learning the importance of delegating and taking myself out of the center of it. And that's hard. It's so hard.
Yes, it
It's so
is.
hard. Yeah, it's so kind of like the way that, and I'm glad that you brought that up because we're refining our systems in that same type of way. We have 3 staff accountants and we call client concierge. I think that will probably be kind of similar to your business person, just to kind of, we're still trying to refine that process because right now the client concierge is tending to and loving on our current client base, but also having to, when we start bringing in new people, to walk them through those best practices and things like that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So now we about to flip the switch. So now we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, and
Okay.
so I'm so excited about this. You are
Mhm.
awesome at segues. Did you know that?
Thank you.
You are amazing at that. So we talked about the CPA and the CPA function, and we talked about the importance of asking good questions, the engagement process, and if you are a CEO, I hope that you heard Miss Tamika talking about the importance of systems and how she just so eloquently walked you through the different steps. It's not just like, okay, send me your stuff. She has specific people they have an assignment of walking, prospective, well, clients at that point,
Yeah.
through what the expectations are, the documentations, what their systems are, and the like. So I hope that you wrote that down and that you're thinking about what systems can I put in place for my company to ensure that, one, that you're setting up your client for success, and two,
Mhm.
and that you're maintaining the integrity of what you do as a business. Amen. Amen. Ooh, right.
Important.
Yes. So let's talk about the entrepreneurship side for a second. So, as an entrepreneur, Ms. Tamika, what has been the most what has been the most effective investment that you've made in your business?
Yeah. Hands down, I would have to say investing in a business coach, whether you want to call it a business consultant or business coach. And I know that's kind of broad, but I would say whatever your weakest area in your business is, that's where you want to retain that business coach. And that was the most effective investment I could have made. And I'm still with both of them right today.
Right. And I just want to let y'all know that every person that we've interviewed said the exact same thing: investing in yourself,
Absolutely.
hands down. And I will definitely tell you, as far as like, I have different coaches for different parts of my business and different walks of my personal life as well. So like, just to kind of just give you just a little bit of context, Miss Tamika. So me as well as my staff, we all still work full-time jobs.
Mhm.
And so this will be my last year because I work for school. So this will be my last year working with the school. So that means that I'm going to have to ramp up. Thank you. So now I have to ramp up what my firm looks like, which means that I'm going to have to take more time away from the day-to-day operations and start going in like product service development,
Yeah.
advertising, marketing, and planning and strategy. And so
Yeah.
that's why I had to invest into an accounting firm coach just to make sure that my offer, when I tell you that they gave me a template for like tiered offers, and even like with how accessible you are, like that alone was a stretch for me because I felt like, you know, that was kind of who we are as a brand. But now that I realize, sitting in the CEO seat, that everybody can't have access to me.
Yeah. No, and that was the same way for me as well. A couple years ago, I knew I was like, I have to hire somebody that can be that point of contact other than myself, um, because eventually, what happens is uh, once you begin to grow, it's like you can only your reach is only so far. You can only talk to so many people per day without your client work suffering. And then once that starts to suffer, then it affects other parts of your business. And then the value. the more accessible
Right.
you are, to me, the lower that value. So um, I do agree.
Right. Yeah. I'm learning that. I'm
So I
definitely
could go
learning.
on and on about that, but yeah, yeah, that piece of it, it was um, like a do or die thing. I had to do it. Removing
Mm-hmm.
yourself from that forefront of being the go-to person.
Right.
That it will take time for even your clients to get adjusted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you may see where you're having to repeat the same thing over and over again, but
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, you guys, the number one advice, invest in yourself. And I hope that you heard Miss Tamika say also that, especially, you have to be honest with yourself to say, you know what, I'm not good in this area. That's why I've got Miss Tyranny behind the scenes with the social media content. Because this chick does not do that. And don't be afraid to invest, and be prepared to start investing also in your team, and have some sharpshooters in your team that have different giftings other than yourself. Because that's what's going to make your team great. And what Miss Tamika was talking about also, as far as like adding value, it's like y'all the super friends, like Power Rangers. Everybody got a different color, got a special set of skills, all of that, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make you better,
yeah,
right? Because
right.
as a team, right, my team looks to me for leadership and guidance, which I can provide all day long. But I know, as the CEO, that there is no me, there's no GIP without the position it's, period.
Yeah,
Right,
100%. Yeah.
right. Anything you want to add anything else to that, Mr. Mick?
Um, Nothing more than pretty much to piggyback on what you just said, like investing in yourself and in your team, but also being able to discern when it's time for you to make that shift from being that
Mm.
the go-to person in your business to now it's time to delegate before my business starts to suffer
Right,
in a negative way, if that makes sense. So there are different phases along the way, but just being able to discern when those certain times are to make a strategic change is important.
right. Exactly. All right. So as we wrap up, you guys, this has been an amazing conversation. And Miss Tamika, we honor you for just being the amazing gift that you are. Thank you for taking time to talk to us about, the function of the CPA and also your journey as an entrepreneur. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I would just like to say, especially to startups and
Mm-hmm.
those entrepreneurs that are not so seasoned, to invest in yourself on the front end. What you think may be a huge investment on the front end could cost you 3 times or 4 times that on the back end. So definitely invest in those consultants or coaches on the front end and your business advisor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could agree more. And how can people get in contact with you?
They can visit my website at mblegacycpa.com or call 901-818-3159. Option one will connect them with Tracy Price and she will get them going in the right direction.
All right, you guys. So you heard it here first. MB Legacy Consultant, Tamika Benton, CPA, entrepreneur extraordinaire. Again, we appreciate you being on the interview with us today. Y'all, again, if you guys need assistance with your business financials, you now have enough content to know which financial role you need, which questions you need to ask, and where you need to go from this point. All right. So if you need additional consulting, make sure that you check also GIPfinancials.com as well. And make sure also that we have a workbook, the 3 financial mistakes CEOs make in their business. Make sure you opt in for that and get some information so we can position you for the right direction. So last but not least, Miss Tamika, you got to give people the deacon hand. You got to give it to them. That's it. That's it. Right there. Won't you come? She's ready for you, y'all. It be legacy. All right. So thank y'all
Thank
so much.
you.
We appreciate you, and we'll see you later. We appreciate
Thank
you.
you for
Take care,
inviting me.
y'all.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Thank you.